The words hit harder than the cold wind sweeping across the industrial yard. A sharply dressed CEO looked at the grease-covered single father standing beside a battered tow truck and dismissed him with a cruel wave of her hand. "Go back to your scrapyard," she sneered loudly enough for every executive, engineer, and security guard to hear. Heads turned. Some laughed. Others looked away in silent discomfort. The man lowered his eyes, not because he believed her, but because his little daughter was standing only a few feet behind him, clutching her backpack and watching her father's dignity crumble. Then, before another insult could be spoken, a convoy of dark military vehicles rolled through the gates. The lead vehicle stopped. An elderly admiral stepped out in full dress uniform, looked directly at the mechanic everyone had mocked, smiled with unmistakable respect, and called him by name. In that single breathtaking moment, every person in the yard realized they had judged the wrong man. If you believe kindness is stronger than pride, forgiveness is greater than revenge, and everyone deserves a second chance, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our growing community. Rowan Mercer had never expected life to become so small. Years earlier he had designed advanced recovery equipment for emergency rescue vehicles, but when his wife passed away after a sudden illness, everything changed. Every promotion, every opportunity, every dream quietly disappeared beneath hospital bills and the endless responsibility of raising his 6-year-old daughter, Clara, alone. Rather than chasing titles, Rowan sold nearly everything he owned and bought a struggling scrapyard outside the city. Friends thought he had ruined his future. They saw rust, broken machines, and mountains of discarded metal. Rowan saw possibility. Every twisted frame and damaged engine represented another chance to build something useful again. He repaired old tow trucks, restored heavy equipment, and created affordable machinery for local farmers who could never afford new models. His hands became rough, his clothes permanently stained with grease, and his once polished reputation faded into the dust of forgotten success. Clara never complained about their simple life. Every morning she rode beside her father in the old pickup truck before school, proudly announcing that her dad could fix almost anything. She believed broken things deserved another chance because she watched Rowan give second chances every single day, whether it was to old machines, struggling neighbors, or abandoned animals wandering into the scrapyard. People with little money often found quiet help waiting outside their doors after Rowan spent weekends repairing equipment without asking for payment. He never spoke about generosity because he believed kindness was strongest when nobody applauded it. Across town, Celeste Whitmore had built a reputation as one of the youngest manufacturing CEOs in the country. Brilliant, disciplined, and relentlessly ambitious, she had transformed her family's engineering company into an international success. Investors admired her confidence. Business magazines celebrated her achievements. Yet somewhere along the climb to the top, she began measuring people by appearance instead of character. Expensive suits became symbols of intelligence. Luxury cars became proof of value. She believed success looked polished, and anything less reflected failure. When one of her company's massive transport vehicles suffered a catastrophic mechanical failure while carrying a prototype recovery crane to a government demonstration, panic spread through the executive team. Missing the presentation could cost hundreds of millions of dollars in defense contracts. Every commercial towing company nearby was already occupied. Someone reluctantly suggested calling Rowan Scrapyard because they handled oversized recovery work in emergencies. Celeste hated the idea immediately. She imagined rusted equipment, careless workers, and embarrassment. Nevertheless, with time running out, she approved the call. Less than an hour later Rowan arrived wearing faded work boots and an oil-stained jacket, driving an aging heavy-duty recovery truck that looked older than many employees standing nearby. Clara sat quietly in the passenger seat because school had closed early for a teachers' meeting. Executives exchanged doubtful glances. Some whispered jokes about junkyards and salvage workers. Rowan ignored every stare. He walked calmly toward the disabled transport vehicle, examined damaged suspension components, studied the uneven ground, calculated weight distribution without writing a single note, and prepared a recovery plan entirely from experience. Before he could begin, Celeste stepped forward with visible irritation. She looked at the truck, then at Rowan's worn clothes, and delivered the humiliating remark that echoed across the yard. She told him to go back to his scrapyard because this was serious engineering work requiring professionals. Silence followed. Rowan simply nodded once. Years of hardship had taught him that arguing with pride rarely changed hearts. He gently placed a reassuring hand on Clara's shoulder, trying to shield her from the cruelty she had just witnessed. Then everything changed. Military vehicles entered through the security gates. Employees instinctively straightened their posture. The lead vehicle stopped only yards away. Admiral Graham Ellsworth stepped onto the pavement with the calm confidence of someone who had spent decades leading people through impossible circumstances. His silver hair reflected the afternoon sunlight as he surveyed the gathering crowd before locking eyes on Rowan. Instead of greeting the executives first, the Admiral crossed directly to the mechanic. His face brightened with genuine warmth. He called Rowan by name. He thanked him for saving sailors during a devastating coastal rescue exercise years earlier when experimental recovery equipment had failed, and Rowan, then serving as a civilian engineering consultant, redesigned critical lifting systems overnight without accepting recognition. The Admiral explained that several rescue programs still relied on improvements Rowan had quietly created. Lives had been saved because one engineer cared more about people than personal credit. The executive stood frozen. Celeste felt every confident assumption collapse inside her. She had researched competitors, markets, and contracts for years, yet she had never bothered learning who the quiet mechanic standing before her truly was. The Admiral noticed Clara hiding behind her father and knelt to shake her hand with the same respect he offered senior officers. He told her she should always be proud because courage often wore work boots instead of polished shoes. Clara smiled through tears. For Rowan, that simple moment mattered more than any public recognition. After introductions ended, the Admiral calmly asked whether Rowan could still complete the recovery operation despite the unfortunate welcome. Without resentment, Rowan answered that broken machines did not care about wounded pride, and neither should the people responsible for fixing them. He organized the recovery team with remarkable precision. Every cable angle, every hydraulic adjustment, every stabilizing support reflected decades of practical experience. Workers who had laughed only minutes earlier now followed his instructions without hesitation. Within an hour the disabled transport vehicle stood safely upright with minimal additional damage. Engineers inspected Rowan's work in disbelief. His solution avoided expensive dismantling procedures that would have delayed the demonstration by days. The convoy departed on schedule. The government presentation succeeded. The contract remained alive. News of the remarkable recovery spread quickly throughout the industry, though surprisingly little attention focused on the public humiliation. Instead, stories celebrated the scrapyard owner whose practical brilliance rescued one of the nation's largest engineering projects. Reporters visited Rowan's scrapyard expecting dramatic interviews. They found him repairing an elderly farmer's tractor instead. He politely declined personal praise and redirected attention toward vocational workers whose skills often went unnoticed simply because they wore dirty clothes. Those interviews reached millions. Parents shared them with their children, teachers discussed them in classrooms. Mechanics, welders, sanitation workers, and countless tradespeople finally saw someone reminding the world that dignity never depended upon appearance. Meanwhile, Celeste struggled privately. For the first time in years she questioned the values shaping her leadership. Her success had become so dependent upon image that she no longer recognized genuine character standing directly before her. The realization haunted every meeting. Weeks later she drove alone to Rowan's scrapyard during a bright autumn afternoon. There were no cameras, no executives, no publicity. She found Rowan repairing bicycles that local children had collected from abandoned lots. Instead of asking why he spent valuable time on work that earned almost nothing, she quietly watched neighborhood children race away smiling on bicycles they never could have afforded. Only then did she understand the difference between building wealth and building hope. She apologized sincerely, not carefully, not strategically, simply and honestly. She admitted her arrogance. She admitted judging a father by his clothes. She admitted forgetting that leadership without humility eventually becomes empty. Rowan accepted her apology with remarkable calm. He explained that forgiveness never erased painful memories, but it prevented those memories from controlling tomorrow. He asked only one thing in return: he hoped her company would begin hiring skilled workers based upon ability rather than polished appearances. Celeste promised she would. Most people expected that promise to disappear once daily business returned. Instead, she transformed her company. Hiring managers received new training emphasizing experience, character, and practical problem-solving. Scholarship programs expanded for vocational schools, employees volunteered with local trade education projects, old equipment was donated instead of discarded. Retired mechanics became mentors. The company culture slowly changed from competition toward collaboration. Months later, Rowan received an unexpected invitation. The manufacturing company was opening a new technical training center dedicated to practical engineering innovation. Executives wanted Rowan to cut the ceremonial ribbon. He hesitated. Recognition had never motivated him. Clara convinced him by saying other children needed to see that good people eventually receive respect. During the ceremony, the Admiral attended once again. Standing beside Rowan and Celeste, he reminded everyone that true strength never came from uniforms, expensive offices, or impressive titles. It came from choosing integrity when nobody noticed, compassion when nobody deserved it, and humility after achieving success. The audience rose together in heartfelt applause. Many wiped away tears. Rowan looked toward Clara sitting proudly in the front row. She no longer remembered the embarrassment of that painful afternoon as strongly as she remembered what followed afterward. She remembered an admiral showing respect to a mechanic. She remembered a proud CEO finding humility. She remembered her father refusing bitterness even when he had every reason to embrace it. Years later, Clara would tell people that the greatest lesson her father ever taught had nothing to do with repairing engines. He taught that every person carries hidden chapters invisible to strangers. Some wear expensive suits while fighting loneliness, others wear torn jackets while carrying extraordinary courage. Judging either one too quickly risks missing the greatest stories ever written. Before this story ends, please leave a meaningful comment sharing a time when someone looked beyond appearances and discovered the true value of a person, or tell us what lesson touched your heart the most. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. As the afternoon sun settled warmly across the once-forgotten scrapyard, rows of repaired machines stood ready for new purpose. Children laughed while riding restored bicycles, neighbors waved gratefully as they passed, and Rowan quietly returned to work with the same humble smile he had always worn. Nothing about his character had changed after receiving public respect, because genuine greatness had never depended on recognition. The world around him had changed instead. People who once judged by appearances learned to look deeper. A CEO discovered that leadership begins with humility. A daughter grew up believing kindness is never weakness. And everyone who witnessed that unforgettable day carried home a simple truth that would remain with them forever: the strongest people are often the ones the world almost overlooks, and the greatest victories begin when compassion speaks louder than pride.